Thank God they got back safe and sound. Yes, it's a relief. We can breathe easy. It's so nice to have them back. You see, summer's really long. It's like 10 weeks between the end of one school year and the beginning of the next school year. But thank God there's camp. Camp is the solution. And my four oldest children, they all went to sleepaway camp. But of course, the camp is divided into halves. Haves and have-nots, the first half and the second half. So the three older children, they went to the camp of the first half. And Shlomo went to the camp in the second half. But what are the big kids going to do in the second half? They'll go nuts. They could come to Canada with us, and they'll be miserable all day. So I came up with an idea. I said, why don't they go on a road trip? They'll have a great time. They'll spend quality time with their siblings. They'll see the world. They'll see the country. It's not a problem. I'll rent them a car. And let them go. Let them experience the world. Well, it turns out to be 25 to rent a car. My oldest Akiva, he's 18. But actually, in the state of New York, I learned the rental car companies, they are legally required to rent to 18-year-olds. But they could charge an underage fee. Turns out the underage fee, it's actually more than the cost of the rental car. So renting it for a week would be like $1,000 to rent a sedan, a Ford Focus or something like that. So my solution was, not a problem. You take my car and I'll rent the car because I'm over 25. Was that prudent? Was that reckless? One of my family members said when they heard about my plan, they said, are you giving them too much trust? So I said, well, you have to trust your children. He said, yeah, but maybe this is just too much. Maybe even too much. But I have a philosophy. If you want your children to be trustworthy, you have to trust them. You have to give them more trust than they deserve. They'll become worthy of it. I once told someone, how do you make your kids confident and mature and productive? So you have to trust them. And you have to trust them blindly. They'll make themselves worthy of your trust. You have to encourage them to take initiative and to do things and to be a big person, to be mature. So the person told me, well, okay, I'll find something that's not so important. And in that area, I'll trust. I said, no. It has to be something which is important. They can see right through all of your shenanigans. So I gave him the car. And from Tuesday morning, I guess, till Monday night, so a whole week, I did give him one rule. I said one rule. If you get a speeding ticket, it's over. You got to turn around and head right back. Besides for that, be safe, have a good time. So they drove from Canada, from Toronto to New York, and then through Connecticut, Boston, Rhode Island, back to New York for Shabbos, the Poconos, and finally up to Toronto. 1,785 miles these teenagers drove. They had a great time. There were some hiccups along the way. So I booked them a hotel in Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. Apparently it's gorgeous. They get there. Turns out you have to be 21 to check in. Oh no, we won't give you a refund. You should have read the terms of service, the contract. So I had to Google how to find like a hotel in Newport, Rhode Island that allows 18-year-olds to check in. Motel 6. I start reading the reviews, and the review says it's officially a non-smoking hotel, and there's these no smoking signs everywhere, but the place reeks of cigarettes. Fine, I book it, and they check in, and I get a text from my son. He says, the place is great. It's tolerable. This is a quote. Officially no smoking. The entire place smells like cigarettes. Apparently must smell like an ashtray. But thank God they're home. They had a great time. I think they'll remember it for a long time. In 20 or 30 years from now, they'll still remember that crazy decision of their dad to give them the car for a week and just allow them to go explore. They're back. That's to celebrate. But in general, it was a celebratory week. Yes, for the Wolbe family. Because my nephew and niece, Rabbi Arya's daughter Meira and her husband Shimon Prupis, they were blessed with a baby girl. You recall about a year ago, they had a bit of a tragedy. Their son was born very premature, and unfortunately he passed. But thank God, they have a brand new baby born on Shabbos in Jerusalem. Everyone's doing well, thank God. And we hope and pray that this baby, who was named Rivka, before Shabbos was over, in the hospital, in Israel, in the hospital, there's a shul, and baby's born early morning. You go to shul, you name the baby already before Shabbos is over. The baby has a name, and we hope and pray that the baby flourishes and grows and provides joy and happiness and a modicum of comfort to her parents and grandparents, and of course to the entire Jewish people. The baby should be a star and a beacon. And I have to say, you're going to love this. So the kids were on their road trip, and they drove to Connecticut and Massachusetts and Rhode Island. But for Shabbos, they went back to New York, and they were by my parents for Shabbos. And they were there with 3 of my brothers. So my brother Arya, Rabbi Arya, and his family, whoever wasn't in camp, and my brother Tzali and his family, and my brother from Israel, Mordechai, and his family. It was a big crowd. Now, my brother Rabbi Arya, he knows that his daughter is overdue, but she's in Israel. So what happens if she has a baby on Shabbos? Israel, they're 7 hours ahead. So how is she going to inform her parents if she has a baby? You have to wait to after Shabbos. Well, after Shabbos in New York, it's like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. That's like 5 a.m. in Israel. So they made an agreement before Shabbos. Listen to this. You're going to love this. I love this. I can't stop smiling about this. If they have a baby over Shabbos, they're going to send an Uber Eats. An Uber Eats to the house that they're there for Shabbos in New York. If it's a baby boy, they're going to Uber Eats blue Gatorade. If it's a baby girl, they're going to Uber Eats red Gatorade. Or maybe pink, I don't know. So it's just amazing. There's a delivery in the middle of Shabbos, and everyone knows that there's something to celebrate far, far away. But we hope that baby flourishes. She was named Rivka after our grandmother, who was an incredibly noble, righteous, and special woman. And we hope that young Rivka lives up to her namesake and brings joy and happiness to her parents and her family and to the entire Jewish people. We're nearing the end of year 10 of the Parsha podcast. And usually around this time of the cycle, we start talking about, well, what's going to be next year? But I made one of the big mistakes. This is like one of the big, unforgivable sins of the Parsha podcast. It was April. And I said, okay, it's already April. We're nearing the end of Leviticus. Let me plan for year 11. But usually I wait till the end. I released my plan too early. In April, I said, we're going to do next year. We're going to be Parsha, Panorama. Every year we have a theme, you remember. This year it's year 10. The theme is we're going backstage. So I said, year 11, we're going to do Parsha, Panorama. A 360-degree view of the Parsha. That was the plan. And now I regret it. I want you to forget the idea of Parsha Panorama because I'm pivoting. We're pivoting away. So let me tell you the 2 finalists for year 11. One is Parsha personages. And one is Parsha with the Hasidic masters. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Going through the Parsha, but not with the classic commentators like Rashi and Ramban and so on, to specifically focus on the teachings of the Hasidic masters. That's Parsha with Hasidic masters. But Parsha personages, this is what I'm leaning towards. That would be to do a deep dive each week into one of the personages of that particular Parsha. So it won't be necessarily oriented around the Parsha in general, but rather about one of the personalities, personages featured in the Parsha. Now, this is the idea that I'm most excited about. I have only one reservation, and that is that next year is a leap year. So that means during the book of Vayikra, where there's very few stories and new personalities that are introduced, and in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, we're going to have to find personages for every Parsha. I don't want to we could do Moshe every week, right? We could do that. We could have 52 weeks or 54 Parshios and talk about Moshe every single week. But I want to do one personage per Parsha. And I'm thinking like, well, we're going to have, because it's a leap year, we're going to have Tazria and Metzora. And Achramos and Kedoshim all be separate. That's the only reservation that I have. But I haven't made a decision, but I'll tell you the truth. I'm leaning towards Parsha personages, and we'll just figure it out. We'll have to figure it out. Tazria Metzora, we'll figure it out who is the Parsha personage of those Parshios. But I already made a list of all the Parshas and which personage I would select. And it may not sound exciting to you, but it's going to be awesome. So if we do that, it's either going to be next year or, please God, the following year. We're going to do it, and it's going to be amazing. So many little introductions. We haven't even started the podcast. But I'm going to give you one more introduction. You see, this week, we're going to start the month of Elul, which means it's only, a month before Rosh Hashanah, 40 days before Yom Kippur. And I'm announcing that in honor of this month, please God, I'm going to begin re-releasing the episodes on the Ethics podcast. There's no better time of the year to reinforce our ethics, to reinforce our efforts to achieve self-perfection and self-development. And of course, the book that our sages gave us about self-development and ethical refinement is the Book of Ethics. And we were fortunate to study the entire thing. We have a whole podcast. This is the Parsha podcast, of course, but we did a whole podcast series on ethics, the Ethics podcast. And please God, we're going to start re-releasing them this week, and we'll do, I guess, 3 of them per week. If you're interested in studying the ethics, the Book of Ethics with the Ethics podcast, search on your favorite podcast app, the Ethics podcast, hosted by yours truly. But now it's time for the Parsha. It's Parshas Shoftim. Shoftim means judges, and the Parsha begins with the laws of judges. To appoint judges and to have a system of justice throughout the land. Every city must have a court. Every tribe must have a court. And these courts, comprised of judges, will judge the nation with righteous, just justice. The court must be comprised of judges who interpret and apply the law, and shotrim, which are enforcers who enforce the law. The justice must not be toothless. The judges are warned to not corrupt justice. They should be fair to both sides. You cannot be harsh with one of the litigants and soft on the other. You can't make one stand while the other sits. You must not take bribery of any kind, for bribery blinds the eyes of the wise and distorts the words of the just. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice you must pursue, so that you live and you acquire and flourish in the land that God gives you. Justice is such an important principle that if you appoint righteous, worthy judges, that is sufficient merit for you to endure and to continue in the land. Following the laws of appointing judges, we have the prohibition against idolatrous trees and trees on the Temple Mount. Do not plant an Asherah tree. That's an idolatrous tree, and that's anywhere. And don't plant any tree, even a non-idolatrous tree, on Temple Mount. Temple Mount, where the temple is, it must be treeless. But why not? Trees are so nice, so relaxing, so calming. They give us shade. They provide cooling. Everyone is happy in a shaded area. Everyone loves the bucolic feel. Why can't there be trees on Temple Mount? So the Ramban says, well, that's the ways of idolaters. Idolaters in their temples, they have lots of trees, and therefore we mustn't have any trees in the Holy Temple of Jerusalem. But of course, the question is why? Why are trees the ways of the idolaters? We have nothing against trees. In fact, later on in the Parsha, trees make another appearance. In the Parsha, we learn about the proper conduct of war and how to make siege works. And we're told, chapter 20, verse 19, it's forbidden to chop down a fruit-bearing tree to make siege works. Why? Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh. Because man is like the tree of the field. We have nothing against trees. We're compared to trees. But not on Temple Mount. I want to suggest an idea. Trees are very dynamic. To get a tree, you got to plant a seed. And it starts developing right away in the ground. It's shooting its roots further and deeper into the ground. And then it emerges. And we have branches and leaves that project higher and higher into the sky. And a tree is always moving. It's never static. If you're going to compare a person to something, a tree is a very good thing to compare a person to. We start off as a seed, and we surface, and we begin to grow, and hopefully we have strong roots. We can withstand the winds, the tempestuous winds of challenges. Hopefully we can flourish. Hopefully we can bear fruit. There's a famous exchange in the Talmud between two sages. One sage asked the other sage for a blessing. And the sage responded with a parable. There was a person who was traveling in the desert, and he was hungry, and he was thirsty, and he was tired. And he found an oasis. He found a tree in the desert, a tree bearing fruit, a tree with wonderful shade, a tree with a stream of water passing under it. He was so happy. He ate from the fruits, he drank from the water, and he relaxed in its shade. And when he was going to leave, he gave a blessing to the tree. And he said, Tree, with what can I possibly bless you? To bless you that you should have sweet fruits? You already have sweet fruits. To bless you that you should have good shade? You already have good shade. To bless you with water? You already have that. What can I possibly bless you that you don't have? Here's what I'm going to bless you with. May it be the will of God that all the saplings that emerge from you should be as wonderful as you. That's the parable. One sage said to the other, what can I possibly bless you with? You should have Torah. You already have Torah. You should have wealth. You already have wealth. You should have children. You already have that. I'm going to give you a blessing that all of your descendants, all of the trees that emerge from you should be like you. Man is a tree of the field. If man is fortunate, he'll have strong roots. He'll have delicious fruits. And of course, the greatest blessing is that all the saplings, all the descendants that emerge from him will be righteous like him. Man, of course, can make poor choices. Man can have weak roots. Man can have brittle branches. Man can bear bitter fruit. Man is dynamic, like a tree. But no trees in Temple Mount. The temple, that's the gateway to heaven. That's the place in the world where the presence of God rests. That's the place in the world where you can palpably sense the presence of God more than any other place. Now we have access to the temple. What happens when a human comes to the temple? A human is saying, I want to become closer and closer to God, become more and more perfect, more and more elevated, more and more spiritual, more and more refined. The temple was the place to ascend the ladder of greatness. But God, of course, is absolutely perfect, devoid of any flaw, of any shortcoming. And God is static. He is one. So man is compared to the trees. Man's always dynamic, always in flux, always moving in one direction or another. But the temple, that, as it were, is the domicile of God. Now the nations, they love putting trees next to their pagan deities, next to their foreign, finite, fake gods. They believe in powers that are like humans, that are dynamic, that are changeable. For us, we know God Almighty is one. There's no place for trees on Temple Mount. Now, like we had in recent weeks, there's many, many laws in our Parsha. Not to offer a sacrifice of a blemished animal, we read next. The requirement for 2 witnesses for capital crime cases. The law of execution of idolaters. Then the law of the Sanhedrin. What to do when there is judicial uncertainty. We don't know what the law is. It could be ritual law, civil law, the laws of saras, of leprous splotches. There's a dispute. You go to the judges in your city, the local sages, the local scholars do not agree. There's a method to resolve the judicial uncertainty. You go to Jerusalem, you go to the Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin, stationed on temple grounds. This is the Sanhedrin, the 71 greatest sages in the land, and they have the final word. They adjudicate all halachic disputes. And we're told that you are required to heed their rulings. You must obey what they say, even if it seems like they're wrong. Do not deviate from the rulings, not right, not left. Even if they tell you that right is left and left is right, you must obey. What if there's a judge who refuses to obey the rulings of the Sanhedrin, and he persists with the minority opinion? This is a renegade, rebellious judge, and that is a capital offense. Now, what's the rationale of following the Sanhedrin? When they tell you right is left and left is right, it seems like they're wrong. Why must we obey their rulings? So there's 2 very interesting ideas that our sages share. Some suggest that the Sanhedrin, they are ruling with the power vested in them by God Almighty. And God is almost party to this assemblage. And it's not possible that God will allow the Sanhedrin to rule incorrectly. So it may seem to you that the ruling is wrong. They're telling me left is right and right's left. But in reality, you're the one who has it backwards. You're positive that they're wrong, but no, they're actually right. Follow them. In your eyes, they're wrong. Follow them nonetheless. They are actually correct. Alternatively, our sages tell us, we don't believe in human infallibility. And even the Sanhedrin, the 71 greatest sages in the land, they are fallible. They can make mistakes. It's possible for them to render an incorrect ruling, notwithstanding all the safeguards that they have to prevent that. Nevertheless, it is imperative to follow their incorrect ruling, because this is the mechanism by which disputes are adjudicated. If we don't have this mechanism, if we don't have a way to restore the consensus, if there's no way to have a final ruling, then the nation is liable to fracture, to split, schisms to develop amongst our people. And to have the great and glorious nation bifurcate and fracture and break into factions, that's even more intolerable than allowing a incorrect ruling to be promulgated. Next, we have the laws of kings. When you settle the land and you want a king, like the other nations, you may appoint a king over you. He must be from your brethren. He cannot be an outsider. And he has special restrictions. He mustn't have too many horses, lest he bring the nation back to Egypt. He mustn't have too many wives, lest they lead his heart astray. He mustn't have too much gold and silver. And he must always be cognizant of the Torah. He has to have 2 Torah scrolls, one that's in the palace and one that's affixed to his body on his forearm. He takes it with him at all times, to all places. And he must read the Torah all the days of his life so that he fears God and so that he does not lord over his brethren. A king is at risk of believing in his own invincibility. A king is at risk of feeling superior to everyone else. A king is at risk of forgetting that he is simply an implement of God. These risks are ameliorated by being surrounded by the laws of the Torah at all times. Next, we have laws of priests. The priests, the Levites, they don't have a portion of the land, but they are given certain gifts. They eat from the sacrifices. The priests, and the Levites as well, receive tithes. The Kohen, the priest, gets the truma, gets the right foreleg and the stomach and the cheeks of all animals, and the first shearing of the sheep. Next, we have the laws of fortune-telling, necromancy, trying to find the future via all sorts of devious methods, going to a clairvoyant, going to a sorcerer. The Torah tells us, do not copy the abominations of these nations. Don't serve Molech. Don't be superstitious. Don't do all sorts of sorcery and necromancy. No seances for you. These are abominable. Tamim tihiyah, you should be wholesome with Hashem your God. Next, you read about prophets. The other nations, when they want to know the future, when they want to experience something transcendental, they go to the necromancers and the clairvoyants and the sorcerers. When we want to receive transcendental guidance, we don't have to go to the dark side. We get it from the Almighty. Moshe is a prophet, of course. Moshe tells the nation, you will have prophets like me in the future. I'm not the only prophet. There will be more. And when there is a real prophet, and you're told how to vet to determine that they are, in fact, a real prophet, you are required to hearken to the words of the prophet. And the prophet, well, they have laws too. They must not prophesy falsely. Even if it's a true prophecy, but if it was given to a different prophet to convey, a fellow prophet cannot prophesy what was conveyed to a different prophet, and not to him. Of course, a prophet cannot prophesy in the name of a foreign god. A prophet mustn't withhold a prophecy. If God gives you a prophecy, you must do it, even if your better judgment tells you that you ought not to. Any prophet who violates any of the laws of prophecy, these are all capital offenses. More laws. We read again about the laws of a murderer, both a willful murderer and an accidental murderer. Once you settle the land, the nation is told, you must designate 3 more cities that are cities of refuge for accidental murderers. You recall that Moshe set aside, he designated 3 cities on the east side of the Jordan. Once the land on the west side of the Jordan is settled, 3 more cities must be designated. Someone who kills accidentally must relocate to a city of refuge and remain there until the death of the high priest. Why does the death of the high priest cause the release of the accidental murderers? Talmud tells us, very famous, very interesting, maybe a bit surprising, that the high priest is partially responsible for every accident that happens. Why? Because he should have prayed. He should have prayed that there are no accidents that happen amongst the nation, and therefore any accidents that do happen are partially attributable to him. Once he is paid, he is punished, he receives his due, well then his co-conspirators, as it were, the accidental murderers in the cities of refuge, are released. In the future, the nation is told that the land will be expanded. And then you add 3 additional cities of refuge. This is a reference to the territorial expansion of the land in the times of Messiah. This is actually one of the few overt references in the Torah to messianic times. But these cities provide refuge only for accidental murderers, a willful murderer, someone who conspires. They hate someone, they kill him. They cannot find refuge in these cities. Instead, the murderer is executed. Many more laws. The prohibition against encroaching upon your fellow's field. You can't move the landmarks to go grab some land from your neighbor. A single witness cannot effectuate a ruling in court. You need a minimum of 2 witnesses. The laws of false witnesses, Eidim Zomimim, they receive the exact punishment that they intended to cause to the defendant. We read about the process of selecting soldiers for war. You go to war and you see the enemy. They have horses and chariots. They're a mighty, great nation, more numerous than you. As we've seen throughout the book, the nation is always encouraged, don't be fearful. Remember, God took you out of Egypt. They were an even more invincible enemy. And then there's the pep talk given by the priest. Your heart should not be weakened. Don't be fearful. Don't get flustered. Do not shudder. For it is God who is with you to wage the war with your enemies in order to save you. And then the commanders tell the assembled army, there are certain people who are released from service. The man who built a new house but did not inaugurate it, go home. Go home, lest he die in war and someone else will inaugurate his house. The man who planted a vineyard but did not eat its fruits, go home. Maybe you'll die in war and someone else will eat its fruits. The man who betrothed a woman but did not consummate the marriage, go home, lest he dies in war and someone else marries his betrothed. And the fearful and soft-hearted man should go home too. War is no place for the faint-hearted. Now, why is building a house or planting a vineyard or betrothing a woman, why are these grounds for dismissal from war? The verse says, lest he die and someone else will inherit his house or eat from his vineyards or marry his intended. But so what? Why is that grounds for dismissal? So Rashi says, it's distressing. It's very distressing to think about someone else grabbing and enjoying living in your house and eating from your vineyard. It's distressing. But guess what? War is distressing. People die in war. Even young people, especially young people. So why are these reasons sufficient to release a soldier from battle? The commentaries tell us something very interesting, maybe even a bit counterintuitive. There's a very special mitzvah happening in war. The nation's going to war. They're going to war to advance the cause of the Almighty. And war is brutal, and sometimes people die in war. But if someone dies in war, trying to advance the cause, the agenda of God in the world, that is the noblest of deaths. And our sages tell us that someone who dies in such a context, they're dying on behalf of God, their soul is right away elevated to the highest spheres in heaven. The soul of someone who dies in martyrdom reaches the highest realms in heaven. But that's only true if someone truly commits themselves to God as they are perishing. They die in a fit of martyrdom. But what happens if someone has some lingering thoughts of their unfinished business, or as we say in Texas, business? They think about the house that they built but is unlived in, the vineyard planted but unenjoyed, the woman betrothed but unwed. That is distressing, but that distress at this important time, at the time of martyrdom, that's going to imperil their ability to die for God properly, with a commitment of their heart, of their life for God. The soldiers that we want in war are people, are soldiers who, should events take a bad turn, should they be killed in battle, they will be elevated. They will be transcended to great heights because of their martyrdom on God's behalf, as it were. Someone who may be distressed, who may be distracted at the time of martyrdom, well, then they may die in war and it won't be noble death. They should go home. Next, we read about the proper war conduct. You approach a city. For battle, you must first offer peace overtures. If they accept your peace terms, war could be avoided. If they choose battle, lay siege to the city, strike them down. But don't cut down the fruit-bearing trees, for man is like a tree of the field. Only trees that you know are not fruit-bearing, those you may cut down to build siege works. The final law of the Parsha talks about the discovery of a corpse between two cities. There's a dead body. We don't know how the person died. We don't know what happened. Were they murdered? Did something untoward happen? This is a tragedy. And it's a tragedy we must address. And everyone in the region must participate in resolving this tragedy. The elders of the town, the judges of the town, of all the towns in the environs, they must go out. They must measure which city is closest to the corpse. We don't tolerate people just dying. It could have been a murder over here. And maybe it could have been avoided. And if there is guilt, if there's blood guilt on our hands, we're in big trouble. So we have to address it. The elders of the city closest to the corpse, they do something very dramatic, very frightening. They take a young calf in front of the assembled masses and decapitate it. And then they wash their hands upon the decapitated calf and announce, our hands are not responsible for this blood. Now, of course, no one suspects the elders of the court to be murderers, but they're announcing that we're not responsible, even in an indirect way, for this tragedy. It's possible for someone to be a murderer and they don't even realize it. Maybe the poor chap was so hungry and no one gave him food. Or maybe he was downtrodden and no one accompanied him and boosted him with the confidence that he would need to survive. And the priests, they pray to God to save the nation from the guilt of this blood that was shed. And the land upon which this very dramatic ceremony was performed, the land must lie fallow. The purpose of this ceremony, our sages tell us, it's to get some evidence. We want to elicit evidence from the people. There may be someone here who knows about what happened. We want to get any and all information that can help us find the perpetrator. When all the elders and all the judges and the priests and the entire city, they come out and they witness this quite grisly ceremony, everyone's going to take to heart the severity of what happened, and they will contribute whatever information they may have to the court so that the perpetrator can be apprehended and dealt with as is appropriate, and we can eradicate the evil from our midst. It's a loaded Parsha, so many different laws and angles, but it is time, it is our mission, it is our mandate, year 10 of the Parsha podcast, to go backstage. The absolute majority of the laws of our Parsha are not relevant to us today. We have laws of kings and the conquest of the land and prophets and the Sanhedrin, war, making war as a Jewish nation. I want to do something a bit experimental, something that we can chew over today, but something that I sense could go further than we're going to take it today. It could develop further. One of the principal themes of our Parsha is all sorts of different laws relating to different types of leaders. We have judges. Judges are leaders. Judges of the Sanhedrin, they're the leaders. They are the judicial leaders of the people. We have, of course, the king. He's the leader, the monarch. We have laws related to priests. The priest, of course, is the spiritual leader of the people. And then we have laws related to prophets. 4 different domains of leadership: judges, kings, priests, prophets. The Parsha begins with the laws of judges. Appoint judges in every town, in every city, from every tribe. Oh, and then there's this big court, the Sanhedrin, the Grand Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. And there are various laws. The judge must be pursuing justice and cannot show favoritism and cannot accept bribes. And whenever there's a question, you bring it to the Supreme Court and you accept the ruling. Don't be a renegade, rebellious judge. We have laws related to the monarch, the king. You appoint a king, it's got to be from your brethren, but he can have too many horses or too many wives or too much money. And he must have a Torah scroll with him at all times. And he cannot lord over his brethren. He must fear God. We have laws related to a different leader, the priest. Various gifts given to the priests. The role of a priest during the war, he gives the pep talk. The role of the priest by the decapitation of the calf in the episode of the unidentified corpse. The death of the priest frees the accidental murderers in the city of refuge. And then we have the laws of the prophet. Moshe says, there will be more prophets like me, and you must listen to them. And the prophet, well, they cannot prophesy falsely, and they cannot prophesy in the name of idolatry. And if there is a false prophet, they must be executed. And if there's a real prophet, you cannot withhold true prophecy, and you cannot misappropriate prophecy. You cannot take the prophecy intended for a different prophet or given to a different prophet, conveyed to a different prophet, and communicate that prophecy yourself. Now, I imagine most of us are not judges, and certainly none of us are kings of the nation. A few of us, I imagine, are priests from the priestly family, but I guarantee you, none of us are prophets. Yeah, because prophecy has gone extinct. We may be working for non-prophets, but there are no prophets in our midst. But nevertheless, even if we cannot fulfill these roles, in actuality, it seems obvious to me that we are each commanded to strive to embody the characteristics of these 4 domains of leadership. And I found some sources. The Mishnah tells us, do not judge your fellow until you've arrived in his place. And there are many other similar statements. Do not judge your fellow. You're supposed to be a judge. Be a righteous judge. We're always making judgments. We all have to play the role of a judge. Be a good judge. We're a nation that's told, before Sinai, you will be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. You have to be kings. You have to be priests. But I'm a Levite. But I'm an Israelite. But I'm from the family of converts. Still, the quality of a king, the quality of a priest, those we have to embody. Moreover, the Midrash tells us that a groom is comparable to a king. The qualities of a king are embodied by a groom. The Talmud tells us that even though prophecy went extinct 2,400 years ago, at the onset of the Second Temple era, nevertheless, the Talmud says, if the nation of Israel, if they're not prophets, they are definitely children of prophets, descendants of prophets. Even though we're distant from prophecy, we have some sort of connection to prophecy. So I thought it would be interesting. It's an experiment. It's an experiment I want to do in this edition of the Parsha podcast. I wanted to go through the qualifications, the criteria of each of these offices of leadership, and also to examine the particular laws featured in our Parsha that highlight the potential pitfalls of each of these domains. Let's start with the judge. We have the judge, the king, the priest, and the prophet. What does a judge do? How does a judge become worthy of being a judge? A judge is someone who knows the law and is able to apply it to all sorts of different novel situations. A judge must have mastery over Torah. A judge must also have years of apprenticeship, studying under the guidance of a master. In the Sanhedrin, there were 71 justices, but there were actually 69 judicial apprentices who would participate in the deliberations as a way of learning. Once someone is appointed to be the most junior member of the Sanhedrin, they are already more senior than all 69 apprentice judges. So how do you become a judge? You got to study a lot until you know it all. And you have to be an apprentice, so you know exactly how to apply the law. Of course, we must all strive to become judges and to hopefully achieve mastery over Torah. Even if we're not going to be nominated to any court, the quality the characteristic of judgeship can still be your goal. That's the judge. The king, what does a king do? The Rambam says, very famous line, the king is the heart of the nation. He's the one who gives lifeblood to the whole people. He is the persona who inspires the nation to accomplish great things. He's the one who breaks down barriers. There are barriers all over. Barriers that stymie, that stifle, that paralyze commoners. The king comes and shatters those barriers. He is the one who shows us how to do the impossible. And thus he's the symbol that galvanizes the nation, motivates the nation to accomplish great things. How do you become a king? You have to have an attribute of fearlessness, of gallantry, of bravery in a valiant manner. The family of the kings, they come from the tribe of Judah. Judah is the one who steps up, who confronts the viceroy of Egypt. We know, of course, it was Joseph. He didn't know that at the time. From Judah comes Nachshon, the prince of the tribe of Judah. He jumps into the water, the tempestuous water, the raging sea. Everyone else is quivering in fear. He shows the nation what's possible. And of course, the embodiment of the monarchy is David. With a small sling, he faces down Goliath. The quality of being a judge we have to pursue, and we must also strive to be kings. Now, a groom is like a king. What does a groom do? Well, he gets married. What does that mean? It means he's taking responsibility for a family. He's accepting upon his shoulders a yoke. He's going into danger. He's plunging into the unknown to build something beautiful for the nation. In the words of our sages, the definition of marriage is something that a king does. We're a kingdom of priests. We must strive to be kings. What does that mean? It means to undertake responsibility for our families, and who knows, maybe even for our communities. Maybe, who knows, for the nation. Or maybe for the entire world. To be an actual king, you have to be from the family of David. But the quality of kingship, that we must all strive to embody. How do you become a priest? Well, you have to be from the family of Aaron, of course. And if you're not from the family of Aaron, you don't have a chance. But the priest, what did they do? They served. They did service in the temple. They blessed the nation. The priest was there when things went south for members of the people. If there's an unidentified corpse, if there is someone with a splotch in their skin, it could be tzaras. If someone has a marriage that's on the rocks. When people need help, they go to the priest. He's the one who directs the sota, how to restore matrimonial harmony to a jealous marriage. The priest is all about service. Service of God, service of the people. It's about selflessness. And unless you're a descendant of Aaron, from your father's side, you're not a candidate to be a natural priest. But we're told this is a kingdom of priests. The quality of priesthood, of service, of dedication, of selflessness. Aaron became the priest because he did the ultimate act of selflessness. Moshe is going to be king. He's your younger brother. When Aaron sees that, he's happy in his heart. And that's why he deserves to have the breastplate upon his heart. So we may not be descendants of Aaron. We can serve in the temple, but the quality of Aaron, the quality of priesthood, the quality of service, of caring for others, of trying to be selfless, to serve others, to serve God. That we ought to strive for. And finally, prophecy. How do you become a prophet? So a lot of people think, erroneously, it's like a spiritual lottery. Anyone could win it. It's not true. There is a repeatable formula for how to achieve prophecy. It's like one paragraph long. How hard should it be? This is Rambam in chapter 7 of Yesodei HaTorah, Foundations of Torah. And I'll translate it. One of the foundations of our religion is to know that God prophesies to people. A prophet can be only someone who is wise, who is great in wisdom, who is mighty in his character, who never allows his evil inclination to overcome him in any matter in the world. Rather, he, with his supreme knowledge and insight, always overcomes his inclination. Prophecy can only be to someone with exceedingly broad and correct understanding. Most of us are already disqualified. Never, even once in any matter of the world, to yield to the evil inclination. But this is just the beginning. Someone like this, who is also flawless in body, that's another requirement. When they enter the orchard, meaning they enter the realm of the esoterica, of the arcane, of the secrets, and they become more and more pure, and they abstain from the ways of the general populace, and they advance, and they encourage themselves, and he teaches himself to not have even a single thought of any immaterial, negligible, insubstantial matter. Rather, his mind is always focused upward, always bound up underneath the throne of God. Someone who dwells upon the wisdom of God from beginning to end. Someone like that, the Spirit of holiness will descend upon him. He'll be transformed into a different type of person and be like an angel. It's an easy formula for how to achieve prophecy. It's easy to define. It's maybe hard to do. The prophet represents absolute flawlessness in every possible way. And Moshe's telling the nation, well, you have Moshe, but you'll have more prophets. And over the course of our history, we know the names of 48 male prophets and 7 female prophetesses. But the Talmud tells us that there were more than 1 million prophets whose names we don't know. People who were flawless in every possible area of life. That was common amongst the members of our nation in antiquity. But prophecy became extinct in the Second Temple era. And the extinction of prophecy coincided with the extinction of the desire for idolatry. And those are two halves of one whole, two sides of one coin. Things must always be balanced. If we no longer have a drive to repudiate God completely by embracing idolatry, then these stratospheric levels of flawless greatness to achieve prophecy is also not feasible anymore. But the Talmud says, listen, we may not have any prophets, but we are the sons of prophets. We are the descendants of prophets. That means when it comes to prophecy, that level of flawlessness, maybe that's not achievable for us. But at least we have to realize that we are descendants of true giants. We have so many different areas of greatness in our Parsha. And most of us, I imagine, are 0 for 4. We are not prophets, and we're not judges, and not kings, and not priests. Count me as an 0 for 4. But nevertheless, our sages tell us, the Torah tells us, that the qualities of these 4, and with respect to the prophecy, at least the qualities of being a descendant, of recognizing your association with such flawless people, these qualities are incumbent upon us. And I think it's interesting, when we look at these 4 areas, these 4 particular domains of greatness. We have laws in the Torah directed at these 4 particular individuals, because each realm of greatness has a specific pitfall. The Parsha begins with the judges. They are required to be wise and just. They have to know the whole Torah. But the Torah says, even if you know all the laws, no matter how much knowledge you have, no matter how much wisdom you have, how much you've studied, how much brains and intelligence and apprenticeship you've done, you have to be motivated by pursuit of truth. You can corrupt judgment, not because of your lack of aptitude, but because you corrupted it. Because you showed favoritism. You took bribes. You must be relentless in your pursuit of justice. Tzedek tirdof, you have to chase after it. Otherwise, you'll become blind. Otherwise, you'll become corrupt. The quality of being like a judge, of having mastery over Torah, that makes you worthy of being a judge. But it doesn't make you infallible. Because with all your talent, if you're not striving for truth, if you're receptive to being led astray, you can and will become blinded. And there's even a judge in our Parsha who is executed. Why? Because they are recalcitrant. They fail to follow protocol. The Sanhedrin ruled, you have to accept it. But I'm right. Doesn't matter. Even if you are right, you must follow protocol. Don't allow your mastery over the subject to delude you into thinking that you're smarter than God. God says we follow the Sanhedrin. They have the final word. We must follow them, even if they tell you that left is right and right is left. All of your mastery and intelligence and clarity and insight, that must be put aside. We have to become judges and be aware of the pitfalls of judges. We have to become kings. The king does things that are larger than life. He does things that no one else is brave enough to do. He ventures into places and situations that paralyze smaller people. He is able to put the entire nation on his back. He is the beating heart of the nation. But even the king has limitations, has particular pitfalls. His superpower is his heart. He's the heart of the nation. His spirit of fearlessness, of bravery, of gallantry. His heart is his superpower. It could be lost. He could be led astray if he has too many wives. He could lose his superpower. He could abuse it as well. He's the leader. He's the influencer. If he, in order to augment the prestige of his office, he becomes obsessed with the horses, with the cavalcade, he can lead the nation back to Egypt. Of course, physically, we are prohibited from going back to Egypt, but spiritually too. We could fall under the spell of what Egypt stood for. And that could be because the king abused his superpower. He mustn't forget about God. He must have a Torah scroll with him at all times. He must not lord over his brethren. Yes, he's the king. But if he becomes haughty, if he forgets about God, the drawbacks of his greatness will outweigh the benefits. The priest, we have to be like a priest. We have to have a spirit of service, of dedication, of selflessness. The high priest, he's like the spiritual leader of the nation. He represents us in the Holy of Holies. And the Talmud could say that he is guilty of a crime, an accident that happened somewhere in the country. In fact, every accident that happens, he's to blame. Why? Because he didn't pray to prevent those accidents. To be someone who's dedicated for others, that's the attribute of the priest. But the priest is required to not only be of service to others when they solicit his services, he has to be active in trying to help them. There's righteousness that's passive. I will take care of whatever is needed, whoever needs help. You need help with a sacrifice, the priest is there. You need help with atonement, to navigate atonement, the priest is there for you. There's a rocky marriage, a sota, a suspected adulteress, the priest will be there. You have a spot and maybe saras, the priest is there. That's not enough. The priest has to say, I'm standing the nation. Where can things go wrong? I want to be active in my service of the nation. And the prophet is truly flawless. The only way to achieve prophecy, after all, is by being flawless. And even for the flawless prophet, we have laws tailored for them. There are all sorts of scenarios where the prophet, a legitimate prophet, can be guilty of a capital crime. If he conveys the prophecy, it's a true prophecy, but it was given to some other prophet to convey. If he has prophecy that God told him to convey and he withholds it, even someone who's flawless has to know that you must remain true to your mission. When you are given a mission by God, you must fulfill it. And when someone else is given a mission by God, only they can fulfill it. So there could be a true message, and you're trying to convey it, but because it's not your mission, it's a capital offense. And when you are given a mission, and for whatever reason you think that this mission should not be fulfilled, you withhold your prophecy, that is a capital offense. So this is experimental. I said it's experimental. We went backstage and we experimented. And what we are postulating, what we're suggesting, what we're positing in this edition of the Parsha podcast, Parshas Shoftim. Our Parsha is full of all these scenarios that never happened to us. And all these laws about roles that we do not hold. The judges, the priests, the prophet, the king. We find evidence in our literature that we must become like a king and must be like a judge and be like a prophet and a priest, even if we don't titularly hold those offices. And we learn about the qualities and the attributes and the characteristics of these great offices and the particular pitfalls that the Torah guides us to avoid. I appreciate you joining us for this a bit lengthy edition of the Parsha podcast. It's Parshas Shoftim. It's year 10 of the Parsha podcast. I thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of your week. And of course, a most meaningful and productive and joyous and exciting and absolutely powerful and blessed Shabbos upcoming. Of course, my email address is rabbiwolbe@gmail.com. Please send me your questions, your comments, and your feedback.